Hey Floss Tube, welcome back. This is my 96th Floss Tube video, and I'm excited to share with you what I've been working on. Actually, this is going to be my 2020 year-end update, so I'm going to be sharing with you everything that I have finished this year, what I am currently working on, all of my whips, and yes, I'm going to even share with you a couple of projects that I have put on hiatus. But first of all, I want to welcome you. If you are new to this channel, welcome. I hope that you enjoy the things that I have to share with you. And if you are returning, thank you for coming back and watching my videos. I really appreciate it. Things are going great here. Today is the 23rd of December. Our family is all together right now. My son came down from Utah about, I guess it's been a couple of weeks ago. So it's been good to have him around. My daughter came up from Tucson. So we are all together as a family for Christmas, except for, of course, my daughter who is on her mission in Utah. Weather is really good. It is cooled down, but we've had some beautiful sunny days, and everything is going good. We are looking forward to having a really, really great Christmas. Before we go any further, I guess I better explain this. About a week ago, my wife noticed that our downstairs toilet had developed a crack in the base, and we decided that it would be better to replace it rather than wait for that to get worse. It turned out to be quite an adventure. It took 3 trips to the hardware store to get everything that we needed. We had a couple of problems that were really fun to deal with. First of all, we found out that the ring that surrounds the sewer pipe that you anchor the toilet to was all rusted out. So we had to figure out how to replace that ring. And then as I was attaching the new supply line as I was attaching the supply line to the toilet, it also broke off, and it was directly attached to the valve that comes out of the wall. So then we had to figure out how to replace the valve, because we couldn't just replace it with a new supply line. So that took a lot. That was really fun too. In the process of doing all of that, as we were taking the old toilet out to the garage, it kind of shattered on us, and we had a great big mess in our laundry room with porcelain everywhere. And as we were cleaning that up, I looked down and my thumb was bleeding, the base of my thumb. And I don't know exactly how it happened, but the only thing I can think of is that I got hit by a shard of flying porcelain. It took off a good chunk of skin off of the base of my thumb, and it really bled for a while. Now it just needs to be bandaged up. And I'm using this tape to help make sure that the bandage stays on. So it's no big deal. Everything's fine. I just have a big piece of bandage on my arm. Anyway, before we get started, I want to talk about some questions that were left on my channel since the last time I posted a video. And there's actually one question that was asked that I missed, that was asked about a month ago. So I also want to answer that question. And we'll start with that. This is from Lori, who's from Once Upon a Stitch. She asked me in my Red House sampler if I'm carrying my threads in the border, and I'll try to point this out when I show this sampler. In the border, top of each of the blossoms, I guess is what you'd call them, there are 3 stitches that are all by themselves, and she asked me if I was carrying my thread between those stitches, and yes, I must confess that I am carrying it. I have thought about using a pin stitch on all those, but I am taking a risk that I'm stitching on 40 count, and I'm hoping that the fabric weave will be tight enough that any carries of that color won't show up when it's framed. It's only carrying about a stitch anyway, so I don't think it would be that big of a deal. I don't. That's kind of what I'm doing right now. I may change my mind and go back in and stitch individual pin stitches for that. I haven't decided, but right now I'm carrying thread, and I guess I'll try to remember to show you that when I show you that project. Sherry asked me. She said, "You mentioned confetti. What is confetti?" So when I talk about confetti, what that means is that you have a chart where you have an area that has a lot of colors. That means that you have a lot of stitches of different colors that are right next to each other. So it's kind of like confetti, little bits of paper everywhere. And for me, that is one of the biggest pains to stitch, is because you have a whole bunch of colors spread out all over the place, and trying to figure out how to stitch out all of those. And deal with that. It always slows me down when I'm dealing with confetti, because the way I stitch with one needle and I change my thread a lot. That means that I'm threading my needle and unthreading my needle a lot. I'm carrying threads a little bit more than I would probably like to normally, so the back ends up being a little bit messier, which is fine with me. It's just that is one of the biggest challenges that I think I have, is dealing with confetti. And Teresa Wentzler is a good example of that. When I show you my Teresa Wentzler piece, I'll try to show what it looks like on the front. So, and anyway, so Tammy asked me what I do with my finished charts. Do I have a file with all the particulars on them? So I have my spreadsheet that any design that I'm interested in tracking, I track the name of the chart, the designer, the stitch count, the called for fabric, that kind of stuff, the number of pages that are on the chart. That all gets tracked in my spreadsheet. When I finish a chart, it goes back into my pattern library, which is mostly a bunch of binders, and all my charts are in sheet protectors. So they just go back into my binders. Sarah asked me on my chatelaine if there was a reason why the lower corner looked more filled in than the others, and I'll try to point that out when I pull out my chatelaine to show you. Yes, there is. I decided that I didn't want to stitch everything around all the time, because that meant that I was stitching the same thing over and over again, and I thought that would get really boring. So I decided to leave off filling in the rest of the ring, and I'm just concentrating on working down towards a corner. When I hit that corner, then I will move over to the next corner and fill in the rest of the square there and continue on that way. So that's just kind of the way I've decided to work through the chart. So I've talked about how I count stitches. I talked about in my that in my last video. And Soccer's Mulan asked me, how do I count backstitch? How do I count beads? How do I count? I don't count backstitching, just because I don't want to be counting each individual stitch, and there's not a good way to count areas like I do with regular cross stitches. And the same for beads. I don't count beads as well. In my spreadsheet, all I do is I put in a line saying that I spent a night backstitching, if that's what I did. And so that backstitching gets counted in my spreadsheet as a day backstitching. I don't worry about counting stitches when I worry about backstitch. Okay, and she mentioned Pattern Keeper. I've checked out Pattern Keeper, and right now I'm not really using a chart that would work with Pattern Keeper. If I ever do get a chart, I might actually use it. It looks like it'd be really great to use. So anyway, so that's all of the questions. Before we talk about cross stitch, I've also thought I'd talk about this. I've been kind of hit by a knitting bug a little bit. I've started knitting something, and I've knit in the past. I've knit a couple of sweaters that have been successful and a couple that have not been. And I don't know what for some reason, when it really cooled off down here, I got the desire to knit. So I have started working on a sweater. I don't knit in this. This is good. This is probably going to last until it warms up again, because what happens is when it gets warm, when I knit, if it's warm, my hands get kind of sweaty, and then it just isn't really a pleasure to knit. But where I work, the air conditioning is, I work on the bottom floor, and it's almost like all of the cold air from the air conditioning sinks right down to the bottom floor. So I am always freezing at work, and I always wear a hoodie, and I thought it'd be kind of nice to have a cardigan that doesn't look as what do I want to say, that looks a little bit more sophisticated than a hoodie. So I decided that I wanted to start a cardigan. So I have started, the pattern that I decided to use is Ranger, which is a pattern by Jared Flood. And I am knitting it with this yarn, which is Knit Picks, Wool of the Andes, Heather, and the color is Prussian Heather. So it's kind of a dark blue with kind of brown speckles in it. And this pattern, it is knit all in one piece, so I don't have to sew anything together. When it's finished, it'll be finished. It's knit all in one piece up to the armholes, and then you join the sleeves in, and then it's a raglan joining a raglan yoke up to the collar, and then you have to, of course, knit button bands. So this is what I've got so far. You can see I started with there's 2x2 ribbing, and then this is the pattern that he's using. It's like a slip stitch rib with a garter stitch background. So that it's kind of taken me a while to get used to that, to remembering to slip every other stitch and not get off. But I think I finally figured out how to do that. It's especially hard on this because when you're slipping the stitches, you're actually knitting on the wrong side, so you can't see the front to see when you're supposed to stitch. But I figured out the back does look different enough that I can make sure that I'm on. So this is the body of the cardigan, and I've also started a sleeve. This is my first sleeve. It's knit in the round, and this is the first time I'm knitting with the magic loop method, so you can see I have this loop here. It's the first time I've done that, and it's a little bit strange, but I like the results. It's a lot better than knitting with double points. I started with double points and knit about half of the ribbing with double points, and then I switched over to this, and it's working really well. So I'm about halfway through the increases up the sleeve. You can see the sleeve is getting wider. I'm about halfway through the increases. So we'll see how long this lasts. I'm kind of hoping that I can finish it before the weather warms up, because once the weather warms up, then it might be another year before I get any desire to knit again. Okay, so that's just kind of an update on things that are going on. Let's talk about my cross stitching. First of all, since this is my year-end update, I'm going to share with you my graphs. The first one is my start trend. You'll see that I had 12 starts this year. I thought that this was a record, but actually now that I look at it, I had a year when I did 14 starts. So it's not a record, but it is a lot of starts compared to previous years. The reason why I had a lot of starts is I decided to participate in Mania. I did a start every week of May. I'm not sure that I'm going to do that again, because it's created a huge number of whips, and I'm not sure that I like having as many whips as I do. So I'm kind of working towards decreasing the number of projects that I'm working on right now. So here's my finished trend, and you'll see that I have stitched I have finished 7 projects. 7 is a tie with my previous record. I'm really happy with that. And I'm going to actually be showing you a new finish that I haven't shown before. I finished a project yesterday, and so I'm really excited to share that with you as well. And we'll get to it when I go through my finishes. Also, I'm going to show you, this is the graph that shows the number of stitches that I have done in the entire year. I have broken my previous record, and I still have about a week left to go, so number could only go higher. I think I've really stitched a lot this year for various reasons. We don't have kids in school anymore that we have to go to, where we have concerts and stuff to go through. All of our kids have graduated, and that has kind of opened up nights, and I haven't had as much claim on my time at night as I have in the past. So I think that's part of the reason why the number of stitches that I have put in is so high. You can also see this is the trend, just to kind of see how my number of stitches has increased over the year as compared to previous years. And it's just been pretty crazy. I think another factor in all of this is I'm stitching a lot of samplers that have a lot of negative space in them, and those count stitches faster. They work faster because, as I mentioned in my last video, I don't count stitches, I count blocks. So this is really chart area that I'm covering, and a sampler goes a lot faster than something that is full coverage, and I'm stitching more samplers than full coverage right now. So that's kind of an overview. I'm really happy with this year, and I'm really excited to share with you what I have been able to accomplish. So this is just a review of everything that you've seen so far. So the first piece that I finished was finished back in April, I believe. This was a piece that I decided I wanted to stitch for Easter, and I worked on it exclusively until it was finished. And that is this. This is called The Lord is My Shepherd. It is a design by Yvette Ungricht. And there will be details about all of these charts in the comments below. You can purchase this from her website, and I'll try to remember to post a link to it if you're interested in it. Basically, it is the text of the 23rd Psalm, and it has bands in it as well with different specialty stitches. You have this pastoral scene, and of course a shepherd with sheep up above, and then different things. This was kind of a first on many levels. I did there's some specialty stitches in here that I have never done before, and this was my first experience, successful experience with Hardanger. So this is all cut out. You can see the black in the background. That is because it won't show as well with white, but if I put the white, you can kind of see that there's that has all been cut, and there's needle weaving going on. There's a bunch of dove's eyes in these squares. So yeah, this was really fun. This is, my wife gave me this for our anniversary last year. It was our 26th anniversary. And so I decided to stitch it for Easter. And it was actually a really quick stitch and really fun to stitch. So this is The Lord is My Shepherd by Yvette Ungricht. The floss is DMC. This is 32 count Antique White Lugana, I believe. It's even weave, it's not linen, so I'm pretty sure that's what it is. and that was really fun to stitch, and it was kind of a challenge, something different, something that I hadn't ever done before. So that was my first finish. My next finish. This is something that I've been working on for a while, and I really enjoyed working on. And it was the 2018 stitch along that was done by Modern Folk Embroidery by Jakob. And this is 4 seasons. There have been a lot of people who have stitched this. I stitched this on, this is 36, 36 count. Just a minute. I'm going to check. It's been a while, so I have to cheat. Let's see here. Yeah. This is 35 count Classic Homespun by R&R. The floss is Silks4U PR175, which is a really nice blue color with a little bit of tonal variation in it. And of course, there's a block for each season with a lot of motifs in between. This was really fun to stitch, and I just love how it all came together. So I'll give you a little bit of a close-up to see what it looks like now. And I'm really happy with it. I had a viewer tell me that I was missing a stitch in the center of one of these stars, which I really appreciate. Somebody had a really good eye, and so I fixed that. Otherwise, yeah, this was really fun, and I really love how it turned out. So this is 4 seasons, a primitive Quaker year. It was a design by Modern Folk Embroidery. It was the 2018 mystery stitch along that he did, and yeah, it was really great. So that was finish number 2. Okay, the next 2 finishes I did while we were out of town, and I chose to stitch a couple of really small designs so I wouldn't have to pack all of my frame and everything. So the first of these are from the Hometown Holiday Series by Little House Needlework. This is the 3rd design in the series. It's called Karoline Quartet, which this is a nice, I guess, palette cleanser from the big projects that I usually do. It stitched up really quickly. It only took me 2 or 3 days to stitch, and it turned out really nice. And then I also was able to stitch another one. This is the 4th in the series, which is Sweet Shop. And again, this was another really quick one, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. So that's finish 2. I'm sorry, finish 3 and finish 4. Okay, the 5th thing that I finished. This is one of the pieces that I am most proud of that I've ever finished. This I've been working on for 3 years. If you've been following me for a long time, you know that this has been something that I've worked on for a very long time. And I was a little bit nervous about finishing it because of the cut work, but it turned out to be not so bad. And this is English Garden Sampler by Teresa Wentzler. And I just pulling this out again. I just love this. I just love it. It's covered in beads. It has cut work. There's a lot of over one. There's specialty stitches. There's just a little bit of everything in here, and you can look at the video where I talked about my finish, where I kind of go over this in a little bit more detail so that you can see all of the details that are in this. But yeah, this is probably, people have asked me about framing things. If I were to frame something, this would be one of the pieces that I would be interested in framing right away. Maybe sometime. But yeah, this is I just see all the beads and just this is wonderful. So this is stitched on 25 count Antique White Lugana, stitched with Sullivans Floss instead of DMC. I kind of wish I had done DMC, but it still looks wonderful, even with the Sullivans. So this is, of course, English Garden Sampler by Teresa Wentzler. Okay, finish number 6 is a quick sampler. This ended up not taking very long to stitch. This is Karoline Beringer from Neckar-Vestheim. This is a reproduction sampler. It's a chart that is published by Summerhouse Stitchworks. I stitched this on 32 count Belfast linen. The color's cream, and this is stitched with Gentle Arts wool, simply wool, instead of cotton. And this was really fun to stitch, and I just love the colors in this piece. All of those bright colors, those are the kinds of colors that I really like. And I love how they're all through there. And this is like I believe this is my first reproduction sampler that I've ever stitched as well. So yeah, this was a nice quick sampler to stitch. Karoline Beringer by Summerhouse Stitchworks. Okay, finish number 7. I finished this last night. If you've been following me on Instagram, you've probably noticed that I've been working on this pretty regularly. I've kind of come up with the idea of, as I work through my rotation, having a piece that I focus on just to get closer to a finish. And I wanted to finish this before the end of the year. I didn't think I was going to, and then I decided at the beginning of this week, I decided I'm just going to go for it and finish it. And so that's what I did. And so I finished, this is Winter Quakers by Rosewood Manor. It is stitched on, this is 28 count dwarf from Picture This Plus. It is the color it is the fabric that is suggested in the chart. The floss is Valdani floss. It's Valdani 3-strand floss, which is a little bit different. The colors all have variegation of one sort of another in them. The variegation is very abrupt. So you'll see places like this where the colors change very quickly. That just seems to be the way the floss is dyed. It's very abrupt. There doesn't seem to be a lot of shading between colors in the variegation. So you'll see that a lot where things are very abrupt with the color changes. So that's kind of a difference, I guess. I finished this motif. I thought I'd be able to stitch this in a day, and I was able to, but it took me a lot longer than I expected. I'm on vacation now, so I just spent all day stitching this corner to get it finished. And this is actually one of my favorite motifs. I really love this motif. I love the greens and the reds together, and it just really looks really good. I love this motif. This is another motif. This kind of like these motifs here, those are my favorites, I think. This has been a really fun piece to stitch. When I first started stitching it, I thought some of the color choices were a little bit strange. They were colors that I wouldn't necessarily put together, but seeing the finished product, I think they're just wonderful. I think these are winter colors on this blue fabric, and it just looks really wonderful. So this is finished number 7 for the year 2020. Winter Quakers by Rosewood Manor. And I've enjoyed working on this. It took me about a year to finish. I started it in December of last year. It took me about a year. If you look at the number of days, I believe it took, I looked at this morning, about 43 days total to stitch, so about a month and a half, if I were to have worked on it straight through without anything else. And yeah, so I am really, really happy with this. And so those are all of my finishes for the year, and I'm really happy with them. I'm really happy with what I've been able to accomplish. So just when I did a lot of starts in May, I think I was a little bit, well, what I should say is I have had a couple of projects that I have decided to put on hiatus right now for one reason or another. The first of those is 101 alphabets. I don't have this piece with me right now, but if you've followed me, this is another design by Rosewood Manor that I want to stitch. It is on hiatus because I've had a couple of bad fabric choices, and I need to get fabric and start it again. I don't know when I'm going to start it, but I do want to stitch this sometime. I really like this piece, and it is huge, but that's part of what really attracts me to it. So this is on hiatus. Another piece that is on hiatus is this. I started this in May, and when it came back up in my rotation, I just didn't really want to stitch it. This is Anne Wilkinson by Cross Stitch Antiques. This is another reproduction sampler that I was really excited about when I saw it, and I am sure that I will finish this sometime, just not right now. So this is what it looks like now. I am stitching this on 46 count Confederate gray linen from Weeks Dye Works, and the floss that I am using is 103 silk from Aversois. I really enjoyed stitching with the silk. I just have kind of lost interest in this piece, but now that I look at it, I'm kind of want to start working on it again. So who knows? Maybe this will come up sooner rather than later. But right now it's on hiatus until I come back to it. And then the third piece that is on hiatus is because I am trying to figure something out. So this is the Queen Sampler. This is a design by Darlene Osteen of the Needles Praise, and I am using the stitch guide that was done by Needle Made Designs. I'm using the suggested colors that are in the stitch guide. Yeah, so I reached this row of grapes up here, and I need to figure out how I'm going to stitch a spiral trellis. I did one practice run with it and didn't have a lot of success, and that kind of has turned me off of the design. But one of these days, I'm going to figure out how to do that stitch so that I can continue on. I'll show you what it looks like now. And if you remember right, this is a design that I am stitching reversibly so that it looks as good on the back as it does on the front. That has presented an equal amount of challenge. I really enjoy stitching like the Montenegrin stitch and the diagonal double back stitch. Those are really fun. But I got to this point with the grapes, and I'm just trying to get up my courage to figure out how to do that again. But this is what it looks like so far. You can see I've got the outlines of this bunch of grapes, and I started on this one, and I just need to figure out how to do it. It'll probably be a while. I don't have any plans to pull this out anytime soon, but we'll see how that goes. So right now it is on hiatus. Okay, so let's talk about what I am working on. What are the whips that I'm carrying over into 2021? This is in the order from oldest whip to newest whip. And I used to have 10, now I have 9. Because I finished one yesterday. So we'll go through the 9 whips that I have. The first is this design. It is, I decided, a mid-Amish life. It's this design up here. This book is 101 Best Loved Designs from Cross Stitch and Country Crafts. This design was published in this book. It's also in, if you can find the early issues of 1987, it's like March, May, and July 1987. It is also published in those, in Cross Stitch and Country Crafts. It's a series of 3 designs that depict life in Amish country. You can stitch them separately as they are shown here, or you can stitch them together as one piece. I am stitching them together as one piece. And this has been, I guess I'm coming up on 2 years working on this. So, and I'm about halfway finished. So I've still got a ways to go, although I think I am making really good progress. And I'll show you where we are. This is basically a full coverage piece, so I'm parking. That's why you see all these threads through here. But this is what it looks like so far. I have finished the first design. The first design was hanging the quilts, which is like from here over. I'm almost, well, this is the bottom corner of the second design, which is visiting the neighbors. So the next time I work on this and get down through here, I'm going to hit the third design, which is called Tending the Garden. So I feel like I'm making really good progress with this. It's just right now the diagonals are on the long side, so it takes I can work on it for a week, and it doesn't look like I've accomplished much when I really have, just because the diagonals are so long. But I'll give you a quick look so that you can see what it looks like close up. Yeah, and I really like how this is turning out. I love the hills and the fields in the back, and I'm looking forward to finishing the house so that we can see more of those. Over here there's a red barn that I'm really excited to be stitching also. And of course, I haven't been back stitching, so there's a lot of back stitch in this piece. This is one of those pieces that when I finish the cross stitching, I'm going to be back stitching for a very long time. But this is a mid-Amish life. It was a design that was published in Cross Stitch and Country Crafts in 1987. And it's also available in that book. There is also a leaflet, if you can find the leaflet, of just that design. Okay, the next whip that I am carrying over into 2021 is this. This is A Saviour's Praise by Shakespeare's Peddler. And I've I've been working on this for quite a while too. I think I'm coming up on, I think this springs it will be 2 years since I started this. And I am just over halfway through this one too. So I'm making really good progress. This turned out to be a lot bigger than I thought it was. It doesn't look like it, but there is a lot of stitching in this. But I think I'm through the worst, not the worst, I'm through the most dense part of the stitching, and I think the rest of this piece is going to move more quickly. This is what it looks like now. This is 40 count beach brew from R&R, and I'm stitching with, it's actually anchor floss with a couple of, there's like 4 colors of weeks floss as well. And I finished the bottom half. Last time I worked on it, I finished this basket. Now I'm working on the words to "Now Thank We All Our God," which go here. And I also need, and then after I do that, there's an alphabet at the top, and then this border needs to come up all the way around. In the border, there are words they're why I wanted to stitch this was all of these words, and I've changed some of them to match the words from Doctrine and Covenants section 4. So I've kind of been avoiding this section because this, I have to make a change here that I'm not quite sure how I'm going to change yet. But yeah, you can see I really love this house and the trees. This basket was a lot of work, but I really like how it turned out as well. Yeah, and I'm really loving this piece. It's just a lot of stitching, and I'm hoping this is a piece that I think it's very possible would be a finish for next year. Okay, so this is A Saviour's Praise by Teresa Wentzler of Shakespeare's Peddler. It's not a reproduction design, a sampler. It's her own original design, but it's styled like a reproduction sampler would be. I just realized I haven't been telling you all the fabric and all the floss. If you have questions about any of these projects, what I'm stitching them on or what I'm stitching with, they will all be in the comments below. So you can get if you have any question about any of the projects, all the details will be down there for sure. Okay. My third piece that I am carrying over into 2021, this is, I'll show you I couldn't find my chart this morning. It's up in my closet somewhere. But this is, I'll insert a picture of what it looks like. This is Queen Anne's lace. It's a design by Lavender and Lace. Marilyn Levitt Emblem is the actual designer. I have been working on this for, it'll be 2 years sometime now. I think I started this in 2019, towards the end of the year, I think. So, but this is what it looks like now. And I am getting really close to hitting this bottom corner here. This is 32 count dirty Belfast linen. And of course DMC, there is a lot of Krynic metallic thread. There's a Vatican gold, which looks almost like silver, and then there's a more gold in the yellow of the dress. I am getting close to the point where things are going to change. Right here, I am starting to hit the top of the skirt, so I should be able to start seeing her bodice pretty soon. And of course, see more of the background, which is started right here. And I really like how this is turning out, and I'm looking forward to seeing how much I can finish this year. I don't know, this is pretty, there is still a lot of stitching left on this one, so I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to finish it this year. But we'll see how things go. That's Queen Anne's Lace by Lavender and Lace, Marilyn Levitt Emblem. Okay, the third project. This is a project that I started in January of last year, so I'm coming up on a year of working on it. This is the Red House Sampler by Brenda Keyes. This is a stitch along that I'm kind of hosting. If you want to join us, all you have to do is post on Instagram with the hashtag BTL Red House Sampler, and I will see your pictures. Everybody else can search for them as well. There are a couple of people who have finished this already, and yeah. So this is, I think this is a good candidate for a finish this year. I'll show you where I am with it. I am stitching this on 36 count parchment from Weeks Dye Works. It's the Zweigart base with the called for DMC, and you can see I've got this top row with the letters. I've started this plant here. I really love this piece. I love the border. This is the border that Lori was asking me about, Once Upon a Stitch. So what she was talking about is you can see these stitches through here that are all separated. They're one individual stitch. And I am carrying my floss through here. So if you look here, I'll show you the back. You can see I'm carrying. I don't think it's a problem because this is 36 count, so the weave is a lot tighter, and you're not really. I'm only really carrying. There's only like 1 or 2 stitches in space between there. So yeah, this is. I really like this one. I think there's a good possibility that I'll be able to finish that this year. It depends on how big that house turns out to be and how long it takes me to stitch the house. But I think the halfway point is like right through here, so I'm getting close to halfway. So, the Red House Sampler by Brenda Keyes of the Sampler Company. Okay, this is number 5, is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is Time and Season Sampler by Moira Blackburn. This was a chart that my wife gave me for Christmas last year, and I started this in May, and I'm really happy with what I have been able to accomplish this year. I've still got a ways to go, but it's going pretty quickly, so I think this is a possible finish for 2021 as well. I'm stitching it on, this is 40 count mallow from Zweigart. It's a cotton linen blend. It's not straight linen, and it's more even. It's more of an even weave than a linen. But this is what it looks like so far. Yeah, it's looking really good. So I am excited to fill in over this over here and then work up to the next level in the sampler. Yeah, this is stitched with DMC, 40 count mallow, and I really love the colors, and I love how this is turning out. So this is by Moira Blackburn, and there we go. Okay. Number 6, is that right? Yeah, this is number 6. I started this back in May too, and I'm really enjoying this one. It's got a ways to go. I don't think I'm going to be able to finish this year, because I still have a long ways to go. This is a big piece. It is Medieval Town Mandala by Chatelaine. This is my Chatelaine, my first Chatelaine, and I am really enjoying it. I love the colors, and I love how it's turning out. It is very sparkly because it uses a lot of petite treasure braid. And I'm down here. Once I get this blue finished, then I'm going to be starting to work on the buildings that come down around through here. And I'm excited to get to the buildings. So this was the question about this one that I had. Why does this look more filled in than these squares? And the reason why is I got tired of doing this all the same thing all the way around. So I decided that I was going to work from this corner out. And then when I finish this, when I get down to this corner, then I will come back up here, fill in these squares, and then start working towards this corner. And just do that on each of the corners. You'll also notice this isn't, there's a back stitching around this vine that goes around here that needs to be done on all these as well. So that's why it looks like it's more filled out in that corner. Eventually it will be anyway. So I don't think I don't think this will be finished this next year, but I hope that I have good progress on it. Okay. Number 7 is this is Dragon Quaker by Sticky Dane von der Wienberg. This is really fun, and I've really enjoyed working with this one. I just love the colors on this piece, and I'm stitching it on 32 count dirty Belfast linen with the suggested DMC colors, and this is what it looks like now. So I am just about over to I just about have the top, probably third finished. I don't know, this is a possibility. It's Quakers, it's a sampler. There's a lot left to stitch, but this kind of stuff goes pretty quickly for me. So who knows? I've got a great big huge dragon to stitch right here. That'll happen sometime soon. So Dragon Quaker. Okay, number 8. With number 8, I started this about 3 months ago, and I really want to get back to this. So I'm looking forward to getting back to this. This is Sunshine and Shadows by Barbara and Cheryl. I really like this piece. I like the way the light plays in here with the shadows from the house and the shadows under the tree and the light filtering down through there. I really like that effect. And since I just barely started it and have only stitched on it once, it doesn't look like there's a whole lot. This is a piece that there's no way it'll be finished this year because I have a long ways to go. But this is what it looks like right now. So I just have a corner started. You can kind of see the brick walkway and the side of the house, the plants that are in the flower bed along the side of the house is what you can kind of see. And I'm excited to do more of this. I really love this piece. So, Sunshine and Shadows graphs by Barbara and Cheryl. And then number 9 is the piece that I just barely started. This will probably be a long time being stitched also. I'm following the rule that you always have to have a Teresa Wentzler in your whip list. I finished English Garden Sampler, so now I'm doing English Cottage Sampler. And once again, I've only worked on this once since I started it. There's a long ways to go with this one. But I really enjoyed stitching what I have stitched, and I'm looking for, this is another piece that has just really been calling to me that I really want to get back to. I just have the bottom leaf border, and this is actually the corner, so pretty soon we'll have the corner coming up, and then we'll get into more exciting stuff. But yeah, this was my birthday start this year, so we'll see how much I can do this year. And like I say, I'm really looking forward to this. So I would like to get my whip count down so that I can concentrate on some of my newer stuff a little bit more, which means that I need to work on finishing the things that I know I can finish. And that's kind of, well, we'll talk about that in just a bit. So those are all of my whips, 9 whips. It's been a while since I've had that many, and so yeah, I've got a long ways to go, and I'm excited I'm kind of hoping to get some finishes done so that I don't have to go, so that it doesn't take so long to get through my rotation. So, yeah. So kind of my plans for 2021 is mostly to stitch on those things that I have been working on these whips. My goal is to get my whip count down. I'm not going to say that I'm not going to start something. I may be starting something. I'm just hoping to not start 12 projects like I started last year. That was a little bit crazy. So we'll be mostly concentrating on finishing those. I mentioned the ones that I think that I can finish, and those are kind of going to be focus pieces. I've liked the way that I've been working through the past couple of months, where I work on 2 pieces in my rotation, and then I work on a focus piece. 2 pieces and then a focus piece. That means that I'm working on the focus piece once a month, and it seems to be going pretty well. I mean, I finished Winter Quakers. So I'll show you my whip status graph right here, right now, so you can kind of see where I am. The criteria for a focus piece is a piece that I am close to finishing. And I think that the ones that I kind of mentioned, I think those are all candidates. I've got 3 that I am really considering, and I haven't decided which one is going to be my focus piece. It'll either be a Saviour's Praise, or Time and Season Sampler, or the Red House Sampler. Those are the 3 that I think that I could really get a lot done on and get towards finishing. So I haven't decided yet. We'll decide that soon. But that's kind of my plans. I'm going to continue working through my rotation like I have been, where I choose an older whip and then a newer whip and then a focus piece. So my next, I just barely finished my focus piece. The next piece that I will be working on as far as the rotation goes is this Queen Anne's Lace. This is my 3rd oldest whip, and so this is, I'm on 3rds now, so I'm going to do my 3rd oldest whip and then my 3rd newest whip. So that means Queen Anne's Lace. I'm excited to work on her. It's been a while, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of her take shape. So I will definitely be working on her in the next week or so as I work through my rotation. I am considering one start at the beginning of the year. I'm really tempted to start the 2021 Stitch Along by Modern Folk Embroidery. That piece just looks wonderful, and I would love to stitch it. I kind of regret not stitching his 2020 piece, and I kind of want to keep up with the 2021 one. So it kind of depends on, I'm hoping to keep up. If I do start it, my plan would be to keep up with it on a monthly basis. And it kind of depends on how much stitching is in each section. I don't know whether there's a doable, how big each section is going to be. I'll probably look at the first one and make my decision there as to what I'm going to do. So those are roughly my plans right now. I have a list of, I'm not going to make a list of things that I want to start because I can't. My list just gets bigger and bigger. I have a whole bunch of stuff that I would love to start. I have 3 series where I've stitched the winter part of the series, and I'm starting to think that I need to get the other seasons started and going, just so they don't hang over my head. So there's that. There's like the Quakers that I've done. There's the Sandy Orton seasonal samplers. I've stitched the winter sampler. There's the Drawn Thread Gardens. I have those 3 series where I've stitched one in the series, and there's 3 more in each series that need to be started, and they're starting to say it's time to start one of those. So maybe that will be one of my starts. And like I say, I have a whole bunch of stuff that I would just really love to be stitching, but I need to get some of this taken care of before I feel like I can really, really start something serious like that. So yeah, that's about as far as I've gone for plans for 2021, and we'll just kind of take it as it goes and see what happens. So that's all that I have to share with you. Thank you for sticking with me through this video. It has turned out to be quite long, and I kind of expected that. 2020 has been a great year stitching wise for me, and I hope that 2021 will be a good year stitching wise as well. If you are celebrating Christmas, I want to wish you a Merry Christmas. I hope that you have a season full of peace and joy, and that all is well with you. And look forward to the new year 2021, and hope that all goes well this next year. As always, feel free to follow me on Instagram if you want to follow my daily progress. I post a daily picture there. I am at blitstitch on Instagram. I love hearing from you and would be glad to answer any questions that you have in the comments. And if you haven't yet, feel free to subscribe to my channel so that you can be notified when I post new videos. And thank you for spending time with me. We will talk to you later. Goodbye. And first of all, I'll show you the graph that shows the number of... What are you guys doing?
We're being silly. All we wanted to do was on camera. I thought it would be funnier than you.
You guys are silly.